Okay, we are now recording. So, my name is Aaron Santos. I'm the program lead for Senior Planet Colorado. I'm really excited to have you all here be present for our panel discussion. Our panel discussion is featuring Senior Planet authors, and we're going to dive into today's discussion with our moderator, Alexis Patterson. Alexis Patterson is going to be moderating today's discussion. Alexis Patterson is the manager of strategic events and special projects for Penguin Random House's audio team. Her main role is to plan, produce, and execute engaging events and activities to promote the joy of audiobook listening to diverse ranges of audiences. So welcome, Alexis Patterson, and thank you for joining and moderating today's event. So I'm going to turn it over to Alexis. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, everyone. It's so great to be here. As someone who works in publishing, I love reading and listening to books, and it's an absolute honor to be speaking with these four authors today. I'm excited to introduce each of them, and then I'm going to ask them questions I'm dying to know, and then open it up to the audience to ask questions as well. So I'm going to kick it off with our first published author, who is Billy Bess. Billy Bess is an entertaining writer, authentic and relatable, with a weekly blog at billybess.com and 2 books published in 2020, which is incredible to have a book published in a year of the pandemic. Her memoir, How I Made a Huge Mess of My Life, or Couples Therapy with a Dead Man, combines poignant insight and delightful humor to describe her passage from her 40s to her 60s. Her collections of essays and short stories, I Could Be Wrong, 50-plus blog posts, short reads, big laughs, wit and wisdom, relays bursts of gut-punching truth and a fresh perspective on life beyond 60. Currently, she resides in Oregon with her boyfriend and her dog. Welcome, Billy. In 2 minutes, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to write your most recent book?
Sure. Thank you, Alexis. I'm very glad to be here, and thanks to Senior Planet for hosting this event. My book is a memoir. It is titled How I Made a Huge Mess of My Life, or Couples Therapy with a Dead Man. As you can tell by the title, there's a bit of humor in there, but also somebody died. So it's not all laughs. It's a lot about survival. I didn't have very many role models for how to make it through a midlife crisis, and took me a long time to figure out what happened to me and how to recover from it. In a nutshell, my husband died of cancer, which is quite common, of course. Being a widow, also quite common. But I think widows need to be more visible and more accessible about their experience. And in my case, something that I thought was really unusual at the time, but I've also learned isn't as unusual as it should be, is that 3 months before my husband died, he had his mistress over for the weekend. And that's how I found out they had been having an affair for years. He died before we had time to work it out. He died before I really understood what happened. And I was as devastated as one might expect. And my way of acting out my intention to survive was to continue to operate our farm for 7 years by myself. So I farmed for 7 years alone on a livestock farm at the end of a dead-end gravel road. And that was my outward bound experience that really pushed me to discover my independence, my resilience, and my strength. So I wanted to share that with seniors, but really I wanted to share it with people who lose a spouse and are looking for stories of inspired recovery. Here I am. I'm 67. I'm doing great.
Thank you, Billy. And I hope writing the book was a very cathartic, therapeutic experience for you.
It certainly was. It certainly was.
Our next panelist is Lan Laniker, and she is the owner of Living La Vida Senior, a senior citizens lifestyle brand offering programs and support services. She's a certified senior advisor and currently serves on the City of Henderson's Senior Citizens Advisory Commission, writes a column for Vegas Voice magazine, a voice for Nevada seniors, and teaches the secrets of positive aging at University of Nevada at Las Vegas. Her latest book, titled Living La Vida Senior, is about senior life in the Las Vegas Valley. Thank you, Pat, for joining us. Also, in 2 minutes, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to write your most recent book?
Well, first of all, let me say to Billy, girl, that's going to be a good book, or send me one. That sounds amazing.
You got it. We'll
like
do.
3 books in one. Well, I'm Pat Landaker, and I am the owner of a brand called Living La Vida Senior. I do all the things that Alexis mentioned and a lot more. But our stories, Billy's story and my story are kind of similar. I didn't realize because I too landed here in Vegas, which is the place that my husband and I were going to retire. Only he died of brain cancer. And it kind of was like, okay, what am I going to do now? I was going to stay in the house, big house. I came from Aurora, Colorado, and just decided that, I was going to stay in that house and just live in the memories. And then one day my son came and said, you cannot, 1, shovel snow, 2, can't stay in this house, and 3, you got to move. Well, I had actually moved to Colorado from Las Vegas, so it was kind of an easy decision. But when I came back here a couple of years later, I was turning 65 and I was getting all these things in the mail, and I was, just overwhelmed by the becoming a widow, and now I'm moving everything that I've known for 28 years. And so it was kind of crazy. So when I got here, you go through the normal stuff, depression and everything, but then I realized I could not have landed in a better place than the Las Vegas Valley. And that's all the areas that are around Las Vegas and Las Vegas. And I decided, wow, what a great place. After about a year here, I said, this is a great place, just like I remember. That's why my husband and I wanted to come here. So I decided to write my little book, which is so cute. And then it's only 50 pages because I don't like a lot of fluff in books. And it's written for people who want to come and retire in Vegas, want to come buy a second home in Vegas, want to know what it's like in Vegas. It's everything that's possible about Vegas. And I've written several books and I've coached a lot of book writers and things like that. But right now I'm very passionate about my positive aging program. This book's a part of it, and a lot of other pieces and parts in another book that I'll be writing. So I'm excited to be here today and share a lot of my many years of knowledge when it comes to book writing, publishing, coaching, and all the other things. And thank you so much for having me be a part of this panel. It's just another step in my positive aging experience. And so thank you, everybody over at Senior Planet.
Thank you, Pat. My sister lives in Vegas, so I'm excited to check out your book and give her some tips. Next up, I have Will Kepper. He is an award-winning author of numerous nonfiction books, essays, blogs, and articles. He's an expert in aging and a former New York Stock Exchange, National Association of Securities Dealers, Automated Quotations, and a private company CEO and board member. His latest book is Untethered Aging. It was precedented by Life Expectancy, It's Never Too Late to Change Your Game, The Power of Urgency, Playing to Win with Proactive Urgency, Cyber Crisis, It's Personal Now, and essays including Amazon for President, Apple for President, and Walmart for President. He's a transformational writer, coach, and mentor, committing to pragmatic and rapid changes in the status quo. His objective is to inspire others to be change agents for themselves and others in situations where what used to work can no longer be tolerated. Welcome, Will. Also, in 2 minutes, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to write your most recent book? Oh, Will, you're muted.
You're muted. William, you're muted.
Okay, there we go. I'm William Kepper, as introduced. Am I good now, Dr. Dana?
You are
Yes, you're good.
awesome.
Okay, sorry for the delay. Maybe some people would say that's the best way to listen to me is on mute, but thank you for the introduction. It wouldn't have been any better if I'd written it myself. So thank you, Alexis. My first book I wrote as sort of an alarm back in about 10 years ago. I had just turned 60 and I lost 80% of my net worth in the Great Recession and its aftermath. Some was self-inflicted, a divorce, etc. But I felt as though at that time, after the Great Recession, that things were going to be very different for people who were, moving toward seniorhood, even though I wasn't at that time. So I wrote this book called Life Expectancy. It's never too late to change your game, to really, sound the alarm for people who were aging and just make it clear that it wasn't going to be like we expected. So 10 years went by. I'm now 70. I kind of recovered, but I became passionate about writing. So I continued writing in the aging vein, aging field. And my latest book, which was published last month, is called Untethered Aging. And all my books are available on Amazon, which is more or less the only outlet for us independent authors and small publishers. So anyway, I moved to Portland. I live in Portland now. I write 7 days a week and have 2 books in the works with 2 co-authors. Thanks, Alexis.
Thank you. That's awesome. And last but not least, we have Jarrell Krause. The freelance features of 30-year New York Times art director Jarrell Krause have appeared in The New Yorker, The New York Times Magazine, and several literary journals. Fulbright Scholar in Munich, Fellowship Grantee in Paris, Fordham University Professor, Visual Artist and Art Judge in Skopje and Istanbul. Jarrell is the author of the critically acclaimed book, All the Art That Fits to Print, inside the New York Times op-ed page. Thank you, Jarrell, for joining us today. Also, in 2 minutes, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to write your most recent book? Also, just make sure to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, I was always a visual artist, and then I became an art director kind of by accident. And I worked for 30 years as art director at the New York Times. And while I was working there, I realized that nobody had written about what I was doing, which was op-ed art, basically, and which is conceptual art and that isn't narrative. So I decided that I had to write this book, so the book would exist. And here it is. It's called All the Art That's Fit to Print, and then the parenthetical phrase, and some that wasn't, because I publish a lot of censored art, and inside the New York Times op-ed page. And the cover image is Kissinger tattooed with his war crimes, if you can see it. And well, you can get this on Amazon, but and really, I had a contract with Columbia University Press, so I had an excellent publisher. But I made my second publishing deadline, which is I'm proud of that because it's not easy. And I was working. I was doing really nothing else but writing this book, and spending I don't know, like 16 hours a day doing so. But I encourage all of you to write. It's so exciting. It's thrilling, really. The process of doing it is the most powerful part of it. Even though Columbia is a very good publisher, promoting it it was up to me, and I got a lot of really nice critical reviews from all over, but and I did a lot of speaking on it, but selling is another thing. But and it's up to you. That's something to think about if you have the energy. Well, I did, even though I'm 77 now. And now I'm writing other things. I'm writing very personal kind of memoir work. And as I had a really bizarre life. But I encourage you all to really get involved in thinking about remembering and composing your thoughts, because it gives you so much to live for. And really having a book, it really makes a big difference in your life. Just that it's a thrilling experience, and it will all be something that you'll always have, and it makes you a bigger a bigger presence, in the world. So you get, there's you get a lot of communication, and so I encourage you all to write. And thank you very much, Alexis and Aaron and Senior Planet. I've enjoyed this.
Thank you, Jarrell. So I have a few questions before I open it up to the audience. This question is going to be for Billy. Do you think being an older adult had an impact on your journey to finding a publisher? And what was that experience like for you?
That's a very good question. And the answer is yes, yes, yes. I do think that I am 67 and I have writing about my passage from my 40s to my 60s. So there's no dancing around age here. And I began in 2018 to start the traditional process of looking for an agent who was going to be a traditional professional agent. I figured that would take a year. And then that agent would begin the process of getting me a publishing deal, which could certainly take a year. And then that publishing company would work me into their schedule, which is seasonal and which until the pandemic was quite a rigid release schedule. And I realized I was looking at about 3 years, potentially 3 years. And that's in the best of all worlds, right? That's not a worst case scenario. A worst case scenario is that it takes your publisher more than a year to publish you, or maybe your agent more than a year to secure the deal you're looking for. So right there, I thought, I'm 67, and this is a story about my life and how long am I going to live in this space of being the woman in the book. And being prepared to tell that story is a part of the publicity and promotion and marketing of the book. And certainly, as Jarrell just said, it is up to you, the author, to be the voice for your point of view and your story. And it is up to you, the author, to reach out to a network, to your friends and fans and followers, and develop that platform for communications that are going to basically propel your career, your product into the marketplace. I had a background as a marketing consultant. That was my lifelong profession. And within the field of marketing, I was a writer. Communications was my specialty. I've been writing for more than 50 years. And I knew I was a good writer. And I decided to found a publishing company, buy a block of ISBN numbers. I took quite a few classes in publishing and founding an imprint. And I founded Widow Speak Publishing. And I've published 2 books so far and have a 3rd on the way. And certainly there are drawbacks. I'm a one-woman show. But also, my book came out in the pandemic when so many authors' books were shelved. And that created a marketing opening for me, an opportunity for me when the actually marketplace wasn't so crowded. My book tour was canceled. My road trip was canceled. All my plans for the physical promotion of my book were canceled. My audiobook recording session was canceled. So
were you going to record your own audiobook?
I had hired a professional engineer in Los Angeles, and COVID, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I had the recording session set up. We had figured out how we were going to create a bubble during the time that I was to record the book. And I'd been practicing and I felt like it was going to be great. I mean, I had a radio show on the East Coast, and so I knew I could do it, but COVID.
Yeah, well, congrats for getting your 2 books out during COVID, because, working in publishing, I know not only was it hard to publish books, but there was a paper shortage. So people that even had book deals weren't even able to get their books printed. So congrats to you.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you.
I have the next question I'm going to direct to Pat. Did technology support finding a publisher, or did you find it any roadblocks? Like, how did technology help to support you publishing your book?
Trying to unmute myself. How did technology help in me publishing my book?
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you how, because I'm a little different. The majority of the books that I've written under my name, with the exception of one I co-wrote and then another that's more of a family book, were all written as almost tutorials to go with my seminars and workshops. So I had written a book called Diary of a Bourgeois Black Girl, which I never was going to publish or anything till my mother, God rest her soul, she's still here, was gone, because it was just truly about my life. And so after that, after I made that book myself, I decided, wow, I really enjoy this. And I started just writing more, and I started learning the programs to make books. And back then, Quark and all these crazy programs you used to make books in, and I just learned them so that I could make my own books under my own imprint. And that's what I did. So once I learned enough and had helped several people just on the side write books, I decided to write this book. This was the first public book I wrote. It's called Blank Pages to Book. I made the entire book myself in Photoshop. I made the cover. I got it copywritten. I got my business license under my Pochette Books, which used to be the name of my publishing company. And I used this book, and I held book writing workshops. This whole book is all about from A to Z. And to tell you how old it is, there was no real internet snap here, copy, paste, none of that. It was all just, you had to research and really look up stuff. And so this is the old school way to write a book. But like a lot of books today, it still works because it's a step-by-step on what you need to have in a book, from the copyright page to table of contents to everything. So I started holding seminars and book writing workshops with this book very successfully. And that's how I sold the amount of copies I did of this book. I sold a few on Amazon, but mostly as a result of Bing. I have another book here called The Self-Empowered Diva, made it myself, created it myself, all of this. And I made this book specifically because I got asked to speak here in Las Vegas at a big conference for women that MGM puts on, and I didn't have a book. So I wrote the book about 6 months prior to the conference, came there and sold this thing as a tutorial. And a lot of people bought it afterwards just to follow what I was saying about women in the workplace, self-empowered diva being what I went through in the corporate world, which I did not and have not spent a lot of time in. But what I guess from information I could give somebody is more leaning toward, if you're writing a business book, that's pretty much what my world has been. A lot of my clients have had an idea, they've retired, they've wanted to take that knowledge and put it in a book. And basically that's what I show them how to do from A to Z. It's very simple. This day and age, you have all the tools at your fingertips to make a book yourself. Now, I just did the Las Vegas Writers Conference 2 years ago. We had all kind of big name editors and people here talking to our attendees and everything. And the one thing that was pretty consistent when you're going to write a book about anything is know what you're going to write about. Mm-hmm. Do you have a passion for it? Where is this coming from? Did you see a picture and thought I can do that? Or have you really done a lot of research? So if somebody needs information in that area of writing like a business book or a kind of a self whatever book, I can help you.
Awesome. And can you put the names of your books in the chat too, so people can look them up?
They are not for sale anymore. They were
okay.
used as tutorials. The only book I'm selling right now is Living La Vida Senior. That's the only book that I have that's still in print, or that's in print, I should say.
Well, congrats.
But I will put that in there for sure. Thank you.
The next question is going to go to Will. When you decided you wanted to publish your books, did you feel like you faced a lot of rejection? How did you deal with hearing a lot of no's before you got the yes? Oh, you're muted again. Oh, there you go.
Sorry, there we go. Well, I kind of had the same experience that Billy did, in that I was 60, and I've run public companies my whole life in the IT sector, software sector, and I was pretty impatient. So I think the question about publishing is twofold: is are you patient enough, and secondly, with about 4 million books published per year, How long do you want to go through that process? And secondly, how much does a publisher qualify you based upon your own market? In other words, what do you bring to the party? You know, how many thousands of followers do you have? Billy's been through this, that you have to push. And it's very tough for publishers to pick out of 4 million books and give you a push into the marketplace. So that leads to me to what I think is the most important thing for a budding writer, and that is you have to want to write, and you have to do it. It's not something you say, well, if only, if only, if only. You have to write every day. If you have an idea for a book, write a paragraph. What is it going to be about? Just get it clear in your own mind what that is. Create an outline, 10 chapters or 20 chapters or 5 chapters, and start writing. Spend an hour a day, or I do it 7 days a week because I love it. And I think that's the real answer to being an author over time, is you have to love it, whether you do it part-time or whether in my case, this is what I wanted to do. I've always wanted to do. I ran businesses in the technology industry. This is a lot more fun, I can tell you that. So that's what I would say. Most books, or the average book, and that means people who sell millions and those that don't sell any. Average book sells less than 200 copies a year. So be realistic. Presume you'll sell nothing, but you want to do it and push it out there because you've got something to say. That would be my advice, is don't do it if you don't love it. And if you can't write an hour a day or 10 minutes a day, you probably ought to, do something different. Thank you.
And Will, you mentioned earlier that you write every day. Are you writing towards a book, or is it journaling? Like is it like working towards a book, or do you just write?
I've got projects. Okay. I have, now that I'm writing, I have projects, and I'm doing two projects, both in the aging area. The first one is tentatively, or working title is called The Bucket List Years. And it's not about going places. It's about how we can make choices to improve the quality of our living in the years out. The second one I'm writing with a professor from Penn State, and that's about senior women online dating, which I think, from my perspective, I bring a lot to that because I've been single a lot of my adult life. And so those are 2 book projects with co-authors. I've never done that, but I'm really enjoying that right now. And I'm just going to add to my portfolio of books for people who are, challenged by the aging process, but are committed to being successful.
Awesome. Thank you. And then I have a question for Jarrell. This is, as like going from art directing to becoming a writer, what was that process of working with an editor to get your book published? Yeah. Oh, you're muted.
You're muted.
Jarrell?
He's trying to unmute it.
Yeah. Oh, okay, I see. Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, well, you mentioned editor. As I said, I had a very good publisher, Columbia University Press, but my editor did nothing. In fact, I'll tell you guys something that the editor did. The only thing I learned from this editor, and it's a fabulous thing. The word only, or even just and even, it should precede it should go as close as possible to the thing it modifies. I have only one apple, not I only have one apple. And you can see this, people make mistakes about all the time. The New York Times doesn't get it right, ever. Even the New Yorker doesn't get it right sometimes. The New Yorker is better, but that's the only thing I learned from my editor. My editor didn't do anything. And I don't know if this is the case with everybody, but what happens is the author is really on your own. You really have very little help. And it's so the process of going from art directing to writing is, when I was art directing, I worked with people. I hired illustrators, artists, and but as a writer, there was nobody to hire, and the people who were supposed to be there for me really weren't. And I think that's changed a lot. Editors used to be more involved. But I don't wonder. And again, promotion. There was no promotion, and no help with sales. So I think writing books and publishing books has become more and more an author's job.
Thank you so much. So we have a lot of questions coming in for all four authors through the chat. And then Dr. Dana, do you want to call out some things, or I can look in the chat?
Yes. So right here, I'm going to start from top. There's somebody here, I think Brenda. Brenda said that, she said, I wrote to you before this lecture that I tried to publish and got turned down before asking about my book because wasn't someone or did not know someone or not reached to publish said the same.
Yes, I'm here, and that's exactly true. And I have my book is not just a normal book. It's actually a revolutionary book. I was a history teacher for 32 years. I read in an ancient Greek history book about how they would talk to the higher power. I found out from the Hellenic society that they still do it in ancient Greece. Aristotle tried to put it down because he couldn't prove it by fact, by fact. You could only prove it by frequency of coincidence. And I even sent this book to SETI. No, I never got back an answer. Is this true? I mean, nothing. Nobody responds. They think maybe it's insane, but they do it in ancient Greece today in all the small villages. And I don't see why I can't get any possible way of advertising that book. It's on Amazon. If you try to call Amazon to ask them what it even costs, they want you to email them. They don't even have a phone number for this department. That company's going down the tubes. This is a revolutionary idea. It's not just, a novel. It's an amazing thing that the Greeks did. They still do. And I just expanded it, made it more used more ways of communicating. But this is true. And I can get coincidences minute by minute with background noise. And I've proved it. I use the time, I use the date, I use where I got the noise from what TV or radio station. And again, they do it in Greece today.
Billy or Pat or Will, since you, do you have any advice on how to get the book self-published, since you have experience in that?
Self-published. It's on Amazon.
It is on
Amazon for over a decade. I wrote book 2 because I found a better way to explain it from a girl who has the job of editor-in-chief in the school newspaper at Anderson, which is the Stuyvesant of junior high schools, my younger granddaughter. She told me how to explain it a little better. I was a history teacher. English was not my best subject, but I explained it as best I could.
Brenda, thank you so much for sharing that. I don't know if a panelist has some insight. We do have a lot of questions, so we're going to try to get through as many questions as possible. But Billy or William or Pat or Jarrell, do you have any insight to Brenda's question? And then we're going to move on to some more questions after that. Thank you.
I think when you're trying to publish a book on a very specific topic, it's good to find interest groups that are already identified with that topic and going into it. So if it's about history or science or art, your best chance of promoting your book is to find the people who are already interested in that subject and then reach them through social media and email. And that's a very big job. It is not easy.
Thank you. The next question we have is from Bonnie. How soon into the process do you need a lawyer to be sure you're not invading someone else's world and protecting yourself? Any of the panelists want to answer that question? Did anyone use a lawyer?
I'm a lawyer. I was trained as a lawyer. I can go ahead and speak to that. I think that's probably pretty close to last on your list. You can always check it later. Just keep track of, if you take material from online, which we all do, just capture the citation at the time. Just clip the URL and put it in your manuscript right by that piece. Later, you can either turn it into your own by making the words your own, take that thought and make it into your own, or you give a credit for it so that you're not infringing on anybody. This is general advice. You should consult your own lawyer, but I've never had that issue or had concern about that issue, because your writing, more or less should be as original as it can be, and just give credit to where you take material that really is somebody else's.
Thank you, Bill. Sorry, Billy, this question is directed to you from Diane. Which publishing classes did you take that were helpful and useful for you?
I took publishing classes. First of all, Amazon offers a series of classes on how to use their software, how authors can promote their books, and basically how to maximize Amazon as a tool for publishing. But I also published my book through Ingram, which is the traditional paper distribution company, meaning hardback and paperback. And Ingram has created an online platform that competes with Amazon. It's called Ingram Spark, and they publish paper books, but also just recently have launched their own ebook publishing, and they are the recognized distributor of books to bookstores and libraries. And so if I originally believed that my book would be in bookstores and that I would be going on a book tour and promoting my book through retail. And of course that didn't happen because of COVID, but I simultaneously took the Amazon classes and published there, and took the Ingram classes and published on Ingram Spark. And then I also took the audiobook courses offered by Audio, which is owned by Amazon. And I was intending to follow that path as well. In addition, there's a woman who is a consultant whose name is Jane Friedman. I believe she was the original founder of Writer's Digest. And if you just Google her, she has an excellent blog and offers almost weekly seminars on for authors regarding publishing.
Thank you, Billy. Do you mind writing her name in the chat for anyone that may have missed that?
Sure. Okay.
And then another question I have for you is, what's your #1 tip to other older adults who want to become an author? I feel like we have mentioned that again, but maybe someone, I know Jarrell mentioned that and Will, but maybe if anyone else wants to answer that tip for someone about becoming an author.
My -- tip for someone who wants to become an author?
Mm-hmm.
I think the most important thing is, who are you talking to? Who's interested in your story? I mean, I wrote my story like I was talking to my girlfriends. I shared a lot of secrets in my book that most people who knew me didn't know until my book came out. And I was really telling my story to my friends and to other women like us to help them understand what I went through and, how they might handle something similar. So know your audience.
That's very important. Any other questions from the audience? Would you like to submit? All right, if anyone wants to ask a question to Jarrell, because she does need to leave a little bit early, unless she already did. I can't see everyone. I see 2 people had raised their hands. Arlene?
Oh, is it okay that I unmute, or how do I do that?
Yeah, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Oh, okay. Okay, I didn't want to breach anything. Hi, I spent part of my life actually making my living writing. I had like a wonderful year at a business newspaper in New Orleans that got, of course, bought out, and I won some awards and stuff, so I guess I was okay at it. And I worked as a freelancer for and about business for a few years, and then I kind of switched directions, though I still write a lot. All to say, now I'm retired, and I always thought, okay, I'm going to find something to write a book about, probably nonfiction, and I've got a couple ideas. My problem is, and I try not to let it be too much of a problem, I do have heavy fatigue a fair amount of the time, and when I hear you guys talk about all the social media stuff or the talking to whoever, et cetera, et cetera. Do you think nowadays, I don't really need for anyone ever to buy it. So I don't, I just for my own whatever would like to do this. Do you think it would necessarily just be a total losing project if I don't have the interest in doing a platform and all that? And thank you guys for doing this so much.
Does anyone
So
want to answer?
I'll jump into the empty space and say, writing my memoir was very therapeutic for me personally. It helped me understand my own experience, and it changed me. My point of view evolved as I wrote about it. And so just purely for the therapy of it was a huge benefit. And if you enjoy the writing process and it gives you gratification to write, and you don't really care who reads it, honestly, I love to write. I write because I love to write. And of course I want people to read my writing, but I write because I love to write.
Yeah, when I work with a lot of authors, that is like the one tip that they give, like you have to love it. And that's like, and when you do what you love, it gets out there. Rob raised his hand.
Hi, thank you for doing this. Brief question, how about getting started by writing for magazines?
I'm happy to jump in on that. I had a syndicated newspaper column for a long time. First of all, I got my writing education from UCLA, where I went to college, and I've had a syndicated newspaper column. That's a great way to go. Looking at newsletters, industry newsletters, if you have a specific, like in my case, I would probably look for magazines about aging or anything having to do with seniors, and that's where I would send my material to. You always want to look for that kind of a niche. If you want to speak on your book, Vegas here is the speaker's world. I mean, people come here all the time. But a little known secret is that Vegas needs a lot of filler speakers. So people who do the little side room stuff. And, so if you're writing about something specific, in William's case and many of the things I've heard, you have a market there, even in your own town. If you want to promote your book and get it out there, Rotary clubs are always looking for speakers, and they love people who have written a book. If you want your book in a bookstore, you know how I got my first books in a bookstore? I walked them right through the door of the Tattered Covered Bookstore, which I'm sure you know, Alexis. And I went to each of their 3 stores, and I walked in, I said, I got this book. I live here, I'm a local. They love locals. They want to help you, especially the small bookstores. I did the same thing with a bigger bookstore. Barnes & Noble. At the time, you could do that. I don't know if you can even walk into a bookstore now and do that. But I think that you have to really think of how you can market your book. In today's age, I say it's simple only because it's easier to access people by a following or getting in a group or whatever. But you still have to kind of use some of the old school methods for getting your word out. Writing. Look, call the news station. If you're writing about something really unique, like Billy, look, I'm a PR and marketing person. That's really my true background. I could have your book. You'd be on the news all day long promoting, because the topic is really interesting and it's so much a part of you. You tell it very well. So getting back to what somebody said about know your material, know what you're writing about, know that you have a passion for it, because it comes through. I've done a lot of ghostwriting, and you know why? Because people who want to write a book, a lot of them don't have the passion to write. So that's a downfall right there. And they don't have the time, they don't have the ability, they don't have the writing ability, and you can step in and do that as well. So I think you really have to have a passion. Even if you have a ghostwriter, you got to communicate what the heck you're trying to do. So there's a lot of little tips and stuff. I don't have a website right now that promotes that. The website that I have is all about positive aging and aging things and life in Las Vegas. But I am happy to, if anybody wants to email me, I'll put my email in there, and you can ask me anything that's about really DIY, publishing, promoting, marketing, and all of that. I'm happy to help.
Thank you, Pat. A couple of questions came in about how do you find an agent to help you? I know that a few people mentioned that, but I know, and then another question is, what's the difference between self-publishing and having your own imprint?
Well, self-publishing and having your own imprint, I don't really see as a big difference. I mean, you're just going to publish your own books, and guess what? You're going to be the publisher, the writer, the this, the that, the marketing person, the whole 9 yards. I personally am a control freak, so I don't mind that at all. I like being able to be hands-on with a lot of the stuff that I do. And I forgot what your first question was. I'm sorry.
How do you find how do you find an agent to help with you? Mm-hmm.
Well, book conferences are always good. They always have a ton of agents there. I worked with about 5 of my clients. I worked with them to get them an agent, and they all successfully got one. But what I learned early on is to coach them, to go sit in the chair and pitch their thing. And then, hey, you got to do, because if there's no authenticity in it, it's not going to work. I mean, if there's no authenticity in what you're writing about, and your knowledge of what you're writing about, and your passion for what you're writing about, they're going to see right through that. And I think that's probably like a first stop for a lot of editors, is just kind of filling you out, because they got to know how far you're going to be able to carry this ball down the field. That's a huge investment for a publishing company. And so, don't be offended. Keep it moving. I sent out a lot of scripts, because I not only sent out book scripts, but I sent out screenwriting stuff, because that's what I really wanted to be, was a screenwriter. And I've always looked at rejection after I finished crying and whatever as a good thing, because those rejection letters, they are telling you exactly what you need your next step to be. People look at them, they tear them up, they burn them, they throw them away. Keep them, go back through them. What were they saying to you? Because they're not just saying, I mean, some of them, they don't even open the thing, they just send it back. But a lot of times they're telling you exactly what you need to know. So don't look at them as rejection letters, look at them as education.
And on the topic of agents, JF is asking, what do you specifically submit to them? Do you submit to them like page numbers, like word total?
It varies.
Okay.
It varies for each publisher. I mean, you know that, Alexis. It could be, you send them a query letter, you send them, it just depends. And some days you're going to get somebody who's just a happy person, or you sent them the right topic that they're passionate about, and that's all you need. I mean, there's a little luck in it as well. There's trend, there's timing, there's all these different things that factor in for an editor that they've got to look at before because they're not going to walk your stuff down the hallway to the next level unless they find something meaningful and almost doable in what they're seeing. So that first step.
Let me jump in if I can. I would say that a proposal for a publisher or an agent is pretty consistent. You can go online and find a format for doing a book proposal, and it has 4 or 5 things that, what's the book about, but they all will ask you, what's the target market? What's the target? Where are you trying to sell this book? What do you have by way of social media platforms? So going back to self-publishing versus a small imprint, over 10 years, what's happened with me is I've amassed my own little kind of publishing group, an editor, a cover designer, a photographer for, author photos, proofer, line editor, people that I can call upon as contractors, where you can keep the cost down, but get everything done. And then I put my own imprint on it. It's called First Global Publishing. And so that's a way to do it. And so I just offer that as a partial answer to that. Billy, I think you were trying to jump in.
Well, I actually formally founded a company. So the company exists. It is a registered business. I bought a block of ISBNs. I gave it a name. I gave it a website. I took some classes in, how to start a publishing company. Because back to the idea of the agent, I didn't have a lot of confidence that at my age, I would get an agent. I sent out in 2018 and 2019 about 30 different agent query letters. And within 6 months, I had received rejections from all of them. And while that is perhaps normal, again, I just would like to say, I'm 67, the clock is ticking. I would like to be promoting my work, telling my story, selling books, and, sitting alone at my computer, sending out query letters just didn't seem like the highest and best use of my time. So I think everybody has to make that decision for themselves. When you find an agent, they almost always have a website. The website almost always has rules and requirements for submissions. And I suggest that you really look at their website and what their rules for submissions are before you approach an agent.
Thank you, Billy. So we're getting close to the end of time. So I'm gonna have Erica and Adam ask their questions. But also Billy, Pat, and Will, people are asking for your email addresses. And I know that you put it in, but like as people put comments, just if you wouldn't mind just putting your contact information again. So Erica, would you, I see your hands raised if you want to ask your question.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Alexis. Thank you, panel. Been really, really, really great for me. Really grateful. I asked the question about self-publishing versus imprint, and I didn't even think of like having my own imprint. I, as an academic, think that, oh, I have to have a literary agent, but Billy, you really like that 3-year piece, which I know is true. It's like, I'm 61. My book, I've written the proposal, I've written my CV, I've written a chapter sample using a template of a book written in 2002 of how to write for an editor for a serious nonfiction. And it has been really fun. I love to write. My book is the rudimentary basics of computers for older adults. And with Zoom, it's, there's 25% of people over 65, that's Pew Research last month, that don't have the skills to be able to get online. So I guess my question is to the panel, what would you suggest to someone who wants to help older adults? I also have clients and, and I do want to use it, as Pat said, as a book for, giving to my clients so I don't have to be there and hold their hands all the time. I have never seen a book written like this. I did a lit review of all the books about tech written for seniors. I was thinking I've been looking at the publishers of the books that are written for seniors on tech, going there, but maybe it's just too long. I guess I just want your personal advice. Am I better off going, like Will had said, I don't want to do it myself anymore. I'm a recovering control freak. So I want someone to hold my hand and, like, Will said, have contractors and pay them and have me just focus on the work. So I wonder what your response is to that.
I think that's a great idea. I mean, we all use contractors to some degree, there's some part of what we do that requires that. Like I can put a great book together, but all my graphics are clip art. So I want to hire somebody to actually create a cover or some kind of fancy design. I've never used an editor, and I know that's not good because I was an editor at a newspaper for a long time, and I've edited a lot of books and stuff, but I realized you shouldn't be editing your own stuff. So I guess I'm kind of split on that type of thing. Like, should you edit your own stuff or hire an editor? I'm curious, Billy, did somebody else edit all your books?
I actually hired an editor and worked with her for a year, and it was very, very valuable. Everything from grammar and punctuation to structure and storytelling flow. And she really coached me and convinced me that my memoir would be more successful if I was more open about my real feelings. Because I went through some kind of gut-wrenching stuff, the fact is, my first few versions of the book, I kind of danced around the real thing. And I think without her help and really pushing me to go deeper into myself and really say what I was thinking, my book wouldn't be as good as it is.
I think that's the real side of where editing really helps. And you get editors that take you deep, and you get ones that just say, oh, you didn't dot the I.
Yeah.
But I know, because I've been the editor of several books, and I've helped people kind of establish those relationships and dig deep and see what they really want to do, that I just kind of figured, well, I don't need that. I do that for a living. That was until I quoted the wrong guy in my book instead of Lao Tzu or whatever it was, Tao Tzu. And I got called out on it by one person who happens to be a follower of Lao Tzu. And so, I know it's a good thing to do that. And in this day and age, I would probably highly recommend that. But, people are pretty passionate about their books. And so I think sometimes you're the best person to review it, or better yet, if you really want a good review of your book or a good edit, give it to your family members. They'll destroy it for you.
That is I've heard that advice before. I want to ask Adam, give him a chance to ask his question.
I have two, but I'll be brief. One, how do you find or make time to write?
I feel like Will gave good advice on this earlier. If you want to take this
Sure,
one.
I'll repeat it. I think you just have to, mark out the time as though you're going to the gym or you're going to the doctor.
Okay, mark out time to write.
And just carve it out and make an appointment with yourself. Put it on your calendar. For me, I jump out of bed, get a cup of coffee, and I go to my desk. I mean, that's just the way I work. And then I go, whatever I can do, I stick with it because I do love it. But that's my appointment. My appointment is whenever my feet hit the floor in the morning, I go and do that. But you could do it 3 days a week or 1 day a week. The important thing is just have it be routine, because even if you just sit at the desk while you're there and you write nothing, you're working on it. You're thinking about it and you can't help it. So that's what my advice would be, is just get in a routine and be disciplined. I mean, writing is a discipline. And the hardest part, I'll see everybody's head nodding who's a panelist, is finishing. But if you don't start, you can't get the last part of the summit. And finishing is very, very challenging. But if you get into the routine, you just keep marching. And I don't know, Billy, or I guess Jarrell's gone. What do you think?
Well, I did the same thing you do. I get up usually around 4-ish in the morning. I make a pot of coffee. I sit down at my desk and I'm in heaven for the next few hours. Just, the darkness, the silence in my brain and my computer. And that's all I need.
Yep.
That's me too, Billy. I get up way early, 4 o'clock for sure, by 4 o'clock. And that's my best time to write. And, it started when I had my son. I had my son late in life, and I was trying to type and do things, and he'd come along. And so I just started getting up earlier. And that's the best time for me. The coffee, I love it. I get really excited about waking up, even though I know I could stay in bed. And I think that's what we're talking about, is the passion. You got to have a passion for writing. You shouldn't have to drag yourself out. I mean, there's days, you got to drag yourself out, but it should be something you can't wait to wake up and do. You can't wait to get home and do. You can't wait for the weekend so you can spend more time doing it. I always tell my son, I can't believe I have a whole day that I can just sit and create. I just love that. So, I think number one, just make sure you have the passion, because it is hard work, and you've got to definitely want to get up and do it. That's the hardest part.
Thank you. I'm going to ask one more question. I'm trying to be mindful. We're a little bit 5 minutes over, but if anyone has any questions that I don't get to, our authors have put their email addresses in the chat. Please email them. I also put mine in the chat. Jermaine, you are going to be our last question of the panel. Thank you so much for patiently waiting.
I'm being very brief. I just want to know what kind of a capital investment you really need to go into this venture, because obviously, from what all of you have shared, your wonderful experience, it doesn't come without a cost, correct?
Well, I would say, no, it doesn't come without a cost, but before you get to the cost part, you can go a very long way, meaning, your own work. You'll find out if you really have a passion for it before you need to spend any money. And so sit down and write.
Talk about, you have to hire an editor. you have
Well,
to hire.
that's later on, but you could go a
So it
very
can't
long way
be-
without doing all that hiring. And I think you have to prove to yourself first that you want it. And
Okay.
later on, you will find a lot of resources. You start networking. You know, a lot of us, and I speak for Pat and Billy and me, is that we do a lot of, you know, I'll say pro bono work where we're happy to talk the talk about writing, and we love it.
Okay.
Sharing with that, you will find those people in your area. And, you know, if you ask the person next to you, hey, do you know somebody who's done any writing? They will know somebody, or they will know somebody who knows somebody. So I wouldn't worry about the cost. You can do things very low budget, and you could do things very high budget. But the main thing is go for your product. My theory is, and I don't sell a lot of books, unfortunately, but I love to write, and I've gotten to be, you know, a much better writer. I'm focusing on my story. What's the story? And how good am I? How well am I writing? So though it's about, to me, first and foremost, it's about the product. Is the product as good as you can make it? I would do that first before worrying about, you know, shelling out any money.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you know, this is way down the road, but the one thing I love about today's marketplace for book writing, book publishing, book printing is that you can just get one book. You can get one book printed and you can shop it around and see, you know, who might want to buy it or what you can make out of it. But that's been around for a while, but that's just something a lot of people don't know about. And there's so many more printing houses that have come on that do that. And so down the road, once you do get your book completed and you've gone through all the steps necessary, you can get one book and see what you think about it and pass it around. I did that with my book and just let everybody kind of check it out, family, friends. And, you know, that can be something that's good. You haven't invested too much, because back in the day when I first started printing books, I was printing 5,000 books at a time, and I was paying all that money, and they didn't have get one book, get 10 books, they didn't have that. And so, you know, I ended up with a lot of books sitting in my garage that then I had to figure out a new marketing scheme to get those out there and try to sell them under a different umbrella. So I think that's one of the best things that's happened, is that you can just make a couple of books pretty easily.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Pat and Billy and Will, for sharing your insight. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you and hearing your stories. Again, like everyone, they had put their email addresses in the chat. So feel free to reach out if we didn't get to your questions. There were so many. So I apologize if I didn't get to your question, but thank you so much. It was an honor to be here. Thank you, Aaron, for bringing me on as well.
Thank you, Alexis, so much for monitoring today's chat and for joining us. And thank you to all of our panelists. Before I let everyone go, I just want to let you know that I did put a survey in the chat, if you don't mind taking a moment to fill out that survey for today's program. I also want to let people know that today's program was recorded and it will be on our YouTube channel next week. Again, another reminder, if you need to look through the chat, but all of our panelists' contact information is in, but I want to say a special thanks to everyone on the panel for joining. Sorry that Jarell had to step out a little early, but I was glad that she was able to join us again.
Adrian, I just need to say one quick thing. I've been trying to put my information in the chat, but because I'm on my iPad and I can't type and I'm just gonna, if you don't mind, can I just say it out loud now? Is that okay?
You can if you're comfortable with that, but also Pat, if you want me to get your email and I could put it in the chat for you while you say it.
Oh, that would be great. Yes.
You can still say it as well, but I'll get your email and I'll put it in the chat as well.
Okay. It's positiveaging54@gmail.com.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank all of you. I'm so appreciative. And Billy, I'm writing my memoir. You're really pushing me on. I'm very encouraged, very encouraged.
Yeah, it's very informal. I mean, informational and informal.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks, everybody.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
See you later.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.